All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a story that honestly feels almost made up. It's just that incredible. We're looking at the absolute bedrock of the Qing dynasty, a dynasty that lasted for 300 years. And it all started with one guy, Nurhaci. This is a visionary leader who took a totally fractured nomadic group of people and somehow forged them into this unstoppable, unified imperial force. Honestly, it's a complete masterclass in military strategy, social engineering, and just sheer willpower. Let's get into it. So, to really wrap our heads around the scale of his achievement, we kind of have to start with this question. How exactly does a man with literally just 13 suits of iron armor go on to conquer an empire? I mean, it sounds like a myth, right? But no, it's actual historical fact. See, after his father and grandfather were killed by Ming dynasty forces, caught up in this really tangled web of frontier politics and betrayals, Nurhaci inherited practically nothing. He started his rebellion fueled mostly by vengeance, and armed with, well, just those 13 suits of armor. As far as imperial inheritances go, you gotta admit, that is an incredibly rough starter pack. Okay, let's just dive straight into the 5 pillars of his empire. First, starting from scratch. Second, creating a new script. Third, the 8 banners system. Fourth, establishing the Later Jin. And finally, his ultimate test, the victory at Sarhu. Number 1, starting from scratch and unifying the Jurchen. So Nurhaci's early career, it was completely defined by survival and just this incredibly methodical unification of the Jurchen tribes, which were super fractured at the time. He wasn't just out there picking fights. He was systematically absorbing all his regional rivals. You can really see the steady march of consolidation. Like in 1584, he captures Toulon. That was to get revenge on the chieftain who betrayed his family. But the real game changer? That happens in 1593 at the Battle of Guri. A massive 9-tribe alliance actually tried to crush him, and through sheer tactical genius, Nurhaci just destroyed them. Over the next 2 decades, he systematically conquered the major tribes, the Hada, Hoifa, Ula, and eventually the Yehe. He wasn't just winning battles, he was literally uniting an entire people. Moving right along to number 2, creating a new script to forge a unified identity. Now, Nurhaci was smart enough to realize something absolutely crucial. Military might alone is not going to build an empire that actually lasts. If he wanted to bind these previously warring tribes together, he needed a shared cultural identity. But there was a problem. The old 12th century Jurchen script completely lost to time. Gone. Centuries of Mongolian assimilation and living a nomadic lifestyle had wiped it out. So what do you do? Well, in 1599, he pulled a total masterstroke of social engineering. He commissioned 2 scholars, Erdeni and Dahai, to invent an entirely new Manchu script from scratch, basing it on the Mongolian alphabet. This was huge. It let him govern effectively, issue written orders, and most importantly, it gave his people a distinct, unified national identity. Which brings us to number 3, the 8 banners system, or the Jakon Gusa. And this brilliantly illustrates what is probably the most critical organizational leap of his entire career. If the new script unified their minds, this innovation unified their entire society and military. To really get why this was so necessary, just look at the Ming dynasty's approach. They managed their frontier using this old system called dupchai, which just grouped people into little units of 10 to 100 men. But Nurhaci's population was exploding from all these conquests and alliances. The old Ming system just could not handle that kind of scale. He needed something radical, a system that could fuse an agricultural society with a highly mobilized army. Enter the 8 banners. Let's actually break down the military math here, because it's fascinating how it builds from the ground up. Step 1, you take 300 men and they form a unit called a nuru. Step 2, 5 of those nurus combine to make a jalan. And step 3, 5 jalans merge to create 1 gyuza, or banner. This wasn't just an army structure, guys. This was the entire administrative state. Literally, everyone belonged to a banner, which meant Nurhaci could snap his fingers and instantly mobilize his entire society for war, or send them back to farm, completely seamlessly. And notice how he structured the leadership here. Nurhaci kept absolute rock-solid control without having to micromanage everyone. He split the 8 banners into a strict hierarchy. The upper 3 banners, those are the ones with the yellow and plain white flags, those were his elite guards under his direct personal command. Then the lower 5 banners were delegated out to his most trusted chieftains and his sons, known as the Bilis. It's just a perfect balance of centralized authority and regional delegation. Okay, on to number 4, establishing the Later Jin, a true sovereign state. So by 1616, he's 57 years old, his culture is unified, his military is a well-oiled machine. A massive geopolitical shift was frankly inevitable at this point. He officially transforms this tribal coalition into a unified, sovereign state. He crowns himself Khan in his new capital, Heitu Ala. And get this, he adopts the era name Tianming, which literally translates to Mandate of Heaven. That is a massive, direct challenge to the Ming emperor. He also takes on the surname Asin-Zhoro, meaning golden, basically claiming he's the direct, legitimate heir to the ancient Jin Empire. Then, in 1618, he takes the final step. He officially declares war on the Ming dynasty by dropping a document called the 7 Great Grievances, explicitly calling him out for murdering his family and oppressing his people. The gauntlet was officially thrown. And finally, number 5, victory at Sarhu, the ultimate test. This all leads up to the ultimate test of everything Nurhaci had built. The Ming dynasty finally wakes up to this massive threat right on their border, and they send a colossal, 4-pronged coalition force to crush his rebellion once and for all. So, you have enemies closing in from the north, south, east, and west. And how does Nurhaci respond? He delivers what is, hands down, one of the most chillingly confident lines in all of military history. No matter how many routes they take, I only go one way. It's incredible. It perfectly captures his tactical genius. Instead of panicking and dividing his smaller army to fight on 4 fronts, he concentrates his super-fast cavalry into a single devastating fist. Now, what's really interesting here is the staggering disparity in these numbers. Nurhaci had roughly 60,000 of his highly disciplined 8-banner cavalrymen. The Ming coalition? They rolled up with around 140,000 soldiers, a mix of Ming troops, Koreans, and even some rival Jurchens. On paper, Nurhaci should have been absolutely annihilated, no contest. But the Ming generals were horribly uncoordinated, and Nurhaci, he knew literally every single inch of that terrain. What follows is literally a 6-day tactical masterclass at the Battle of Sarhu. Day 1, he catches the Ming west route while they're trying to cross a river, breaks a dam, and just destroys them. Day 2, he completely pivots and crushes the north route's defensive camps before they even know it hit them. Day 3, he uses deception to lure the east route into this deadly ambush up in the mountains. By day 6, the remaining south route hears about this absolute slaughter and they retreat in total panic, taking massive casualties just trying to run away. In less than a week, he systematically isolated and destroyed an army more than twice his size. Incredible. But, no commander wins absolutely every single battle. Fast forward to 1626, and Nurhaci faces a really bitter defeat. He went up against Ming forces armed with modern Portuguese cannons at the fortress of Ningyuan, which was defended by a very capable general named Yuan Chenghuan. Wounded, exhausted, and honestly pretty frustrated by this whole setback, Nurhaci passed away just months later at the age of 68. But here's the thing, despite that final military failure, his legacy was completely cemented. The administrative, the cultural, the military foundations of the Qing Empire, they were fully complete. So all this brings us to a really fascinating final question to ponder. We've seen his undeniable strategic brilliance, right? From creating the Manchu script to organizing the 8 banners to that massive triumph at Sarhu. But would his empire have risen so incredibly fast if he hadn't been pushing against a Ming dynasty that was, frankly, already rotting from the inside out, dealing with intense corruption and divided leadership? It's kind of this perfect intersection of individual genius and just really good historical timing. Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, keep questioning history.